Hello, everybody. I'm Bonnie Squires. I'm your host for Bonnie's Beat. I'd like to showcase people who are doing important things in the community and helping all of us out. And whether it's in academia, whether it's athletics, whether it's charity, whether it's an author, whatever it is, I like to probe them and find out who they are and how they got to where they are. And today I've got somebody very interesting who came all the way out here to Radnor Studio 21. Her name is Laya Charlestein. That's quite a combination, the Martinez and the Charlestein. We'll get into that. Laya, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You have been an advocate for women for a very long time. Even when the Union League did not allow women to have memberships. How did you wangle a membership in the Union League as a woman 20-some years ago?
Well, I was proposed, and I was the fifth wave of women who were allowed to be members of the Union League.
I love it when you have to say we're allowed to be members of the Union
That's
League.
right.
But Marge Broderick, the late Marge Broderick, who was married to former Lieutenant Governor, Big Judge Raymond Broderick, Marge she was a friend of mine. We worked together in Peter Leocoris' office at Temple University years ago. She was the first woman who was allowed to take out her own membership. And that was like, woo!
Yes, well, it wasn't only the Union League that allowed women members, but also the Rotary Club. In 1987, in April of 1987, women were finally allowed to be members of the Rotary Clubs.
I didn't know that, because the women are the backbone of every nonprofit organization. You know
That's
that.
Right.
I know that. Doesn't matter whether it's a religious or political or a charity. It's the women who do all the work.
Mm-hmm. They're behind the scenes, and that's how I wrote my first software, my major software application. It's an application that works behind the scenes in every office.
I didn't know that you, well, let's find out first of all, where were you born, where were you raised, where'd you go to high school, where'd you go to college?
I was born in Long Island.
Long Island.
Yes,
Okay.
but I don't say it that way. I was born and raised in Lawrence, Long Island, which is the south shore of Long Island. And I went to a parochial school called Hebrew Institute of Long Island. That's High Lie.
Where is it? What town is it in?
In Far Rockaway,
Okay.
right near the water, right near the bay. After that, I went to Beth Jacob in Crown Heights and Williamsburg, New York. After that, I went to Yeshiva University, to Teachers Institute for Women, a department of Yeshiva University. I also took courses in Hunter College because our division didn't have all the necessary courses to become a teacher. I went to college to become a Hebrew teacher. I went to Hebrew college. I entered the business world and grew from there.
How did you get to write codes for computers?
I joined a company, worked for a computer company part-time while I was going to school.
What was the name of that company?
Computer Processing Corporation.
Was it in New York?
It was in Manhattan on Madison Avenue.
Nice address.
Yes, it was a fabulous, exciting place to be as a young girl. I started part-time when I was 19 years old and went to school the other part of the day. I was hired as a Gal Friday, and I quickly went from Gal Friday to bookkeeper, and I took over all of the bookkeeping and accounting in the company. The accountant used to come in once a month, and each month when he came in, I would watch what he was doing. So by the end of 6-7 months, I saw everything that the accountant did and decided to do the work myself. And he came into the office one day and told my boss, "You don't need us anymore, she's doing it all."
What a compliment.
Thank you. I took over that part of the business, and at the end of the year, we sent all of the accounting necessary entries to the accountant to do the taxes, and I did the rest of it. Shortly after that, since I was working for a computer service bureau, I needed to move up, and I asked my boss if I could learn how to work a computer, and more importantly, I would like to write programs. So one day he came to me and gave me a set of examples, write this program with some coding sheets. I looked at it, it was Greek. I had no idea what was going on. I struggled with it, but I could get nowhere. So then he showed me a program that he wrote in the language, and he showed me the specs and then the code that he wrote. So I started figuring out how you write code. Shortly after that, we were a customer of IBM Corporation. It was during the time before there were mini computers. There were large mainframes, and we worked on large mainframes.
Large, like room size.
Exactly. A room this size.
Yes.
Had a computer. In the wintertime, in the freezing cold wintertime, we had the air conditioning blowing full blast because the computer threw off so much heat. I then went to IBM, to the school, the IBM school, because it was not given as courses in a university. So I went to IBM and I learned a language called COBOL.
That I've heard of. My husband has 2 degrees in IT, information technology. So the only thing I know, I'm probably the last person in North America that's still using WordPerfect.
Yes.
But I love WordPerfect.
I didn't know it existed.
It does, it does. And anytime I have a problem with my computer, Sammy, I just lost the icon for my email, help. And then where he finds it, I don't know, because he goes behind all these screens. I know WordPerfect, I know email, I can text on my cell phone.
Good for you.
I'm still using a BlackBerry, and people laugh when I pull out my BlackBerry. I said, this is my 3rd BlackBerry, and if it's good enough for President Obama, it's good enough for me.
Okay. I use an iPhone or a Samsung.
My best friend she always buys the latest whatever. She has so many problems with it. She uses it to Skype to her granddaughter in California.
Yes.
But she drops calls all the time. I can't afford to do that because I do a lot of my business on my BlackBerry.
Well, Skype is old-fashioned. Now we do FaceTime.
That's what she calls it, FaceTime.
Yes.
I don't do either of those on my BlackBerry.
Technology is changing in seconds, not in months or weeks or days or hours, but in seconds. Technology is moving faster than we can even think about.
It's depressing. When I go to the art museum and I see people with like a little 3-year-old who's using the handheld thing, the device, I couldn't figure out how to do it.
When they see a screen, they swipe. As early as 11 months old, they're looking at screens and swiping.
Well,
but it is fascinating. And the best part of it is that there's knowledge available to you at any time of the day, and you can find and learn anything you want to learn by Googling it.
I like to read newspapers online. I mean, I have to have a physical newspaper delivered every day, and every weekend for 3 days, I get the New York Times, but it takes me a week to go through it. But I like to read the New York Times, the Washington Post, a lot of other newspapers online to see what's happening.
Yes.
And I get so many e-zines from various people in Politics PA and City and State PA, but they're good because they give you a digest of what across the country, what newspapers are saying.
We have to decipher what's important and what isn't, or you wouldn't get through your day or accomplish anything.
That's right. Anyway, so you're at the Union League, and they finally allowed women to be members.
1986.
And then?
I joined in 1993. I fished around and learned the building and tried to meet people and decided that I should join a club table. Now, the Union League is a huge organization. It's the #1 city club in the United States.
Who named it the #1 city club in the United States?
It was voted on. You can Google it. It's been voted on. This is the 4th year that it's been
Isn't that
voted the
interesting?
#1 city club.
Who's the president of the Union League these
Jim
days?
Dunnigan.
I don't know him.
Okay.
What does he do for a living?
He's I think in finance, but I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, whenever I meet a guy in finance, I say, "Where's the bag with the money?" And they all laugh. Say, "I left it in the car."
Well, he wrote an article about our club table. As I was saying, the Union League.
Well, what other club tables existed before you started the women's club table?
Well, we had a club table called the 1230 Club Table. That meant that a group of individuals, men only, met for lunch once a week they had a club table, so they called it the 1230 Club Table because they met at 1230 once a week. And I decided to join that table. And I went over to them to join it, and they said, "I'm sorry, it's men only." Then I went to
Did you
another.
punch anybody when they said that
No,
to you? You
I'm-
should have,
I'm
Laya. You
polite.
should have.
I did something better. I started my own club table.
Okay.
I saw a missing link in the league and decided we need a women's table. There are no women-only tables at the Union League. So I gathered together 10 charter members, and in 1997 I submitted a letter to the chair of the club tables, and he was intrigued and delighted that I created.
You took the initiative.
That's right. And in 1998 we were formally the One Percenters Club Table.
Why 1%er?
The One Percenters Club Table name was given for the 1% of the population that are leaders in our community, make things happen, driving the world forward.
Very interesting. I was thinking maybe 1% of the membership happens
Nothing
to
to
be
do with
female.
that. Nothing to do with that. It was philosophical. And we gathered together self-made women, entrepreneurial women who use their intellect and their passion to make things happen. I wanted to form a table where we could discuss ideas, have interesting conversations, conviviality, and help each other in our businesses. So the first 10 women were all entrepreneurs.
Now, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Very much so.
But what are you doing these days? Or what were you doing then,
Then
that
I
made you
had-
an entrepreneur?
I owned a computer business, a computer data processing business,
Oh,
and changed it from just a data processing business to a full service company using hardware, state-of-the-art hardware and software to create solutions for Fortune 500 companies. We had, our clientele was mostly Fortune 500 companies, although we did have many other clients. We had GlaxoSmithKline, Lockheed Martin,
Wow.
Roman Haas, University of Pennsylvania.
my alma mater.
Okay, that's right. ACP, American College of Physicians, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, a large clientele of Fortune 500. We also did SEI, which is a credit union.
Oh, sure.
Many others. Just
Are you
we had-
still in the computer business?
I don't run it. My son runs a computer business now. Most of our employees are in India, and it has changed. But we do service companies.
Is your son in India?
No.
He's based here?
He's based in Connecticut.
Well, East Coast at least.
Right. And my daughter is based in Philadelphia, and she's also, she does social media, internet marketing, lead generation for firms locally and also not locally. And her business is in Philadelphia.
Now, I have to tell my viewers that I first met Laya because she's married to one of my favorite people in the universe, Rabbi Gary Charlestein. But he wasn't your first husband and you
No.
weren't his first wife.
That's correct.
But you've been together a long time now.
Yes. Almost 14 years.
Wow. Okay. And how did you meet Gary?
We were on a dating service.
A Jewish dating service?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I love it. And was he the first one that you picked?
No. That's a different subject.
Oh, okay. All right. That's another subject. Anyway, so how often does your 1%er table meet?
We meet once a week, every Friday at 12:30. There's a club table lunch. Other than that, we have a happy hour every month. We have speakers that speak to the membership. We have all kinds of different programs that occur throughout the month. We have a sunshine committee, which is there to take care of its members. If you have a birth in the family, a death in the family, a marriage, all the personal things that happen, we like to acknowledge to support our members.
Now, Rotary, you've been the president
Yes,
of the
I have.
Bala Cynwyd Rotary.
Bala Cynwyd Narberth Rotary.
Are you involved with Rotary nationally, internationally as well?
Yes, I'm involved with Rotary locally. I'm in charge of literacy. Every year we go to the Philadelphia schools and we give out dictionaries to the third graders.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We give a presentation to in an assembly, and we talk about the importance of dictionaries, but more importantly, the importance of knowledge, how knowledge drives us, how knowledge moves us forward to do great things. And we also...
Like climate change. I just had to throw that in.
Okay, well, we don't really get into that, but we get into the beginnings of writing, cuneiform writing, hieroglyphics, and we display a map of where writing came from, where civilization came from, and how important it is to read. But more importantly, when you read, you must understand what you're reading. So by having a dictionary and holding it in your hand, in third grade you don't have a computer, but you can hold the dictionary in your hand and look up any word and look at how to pronounce it, how to use it, how to create a more interesting word than the word that you're reading.
And synonyms.
Exactly. And this way it teaches you how to write and how to think and how to have more knowledge and be smarter and more successful in your lifetime.
Every once in a while I see you bringing one of your grandchildren
Yes.
to services at Har Zion. How old is...
9 years old and 11 years old.
Are they good readers?
Yes, they are.
I wonder why.
They each have their own dictionary. They know the importance of reading.
But you also write.
Yes.
Now, tell me about the article you wrote. Was it for the Boston Globe?
Yes, I wrote it.
That's a big newspaper.
That's right. It was printed in April of 2018. It's called Through Rough Seas. And it generally is a synopsis of the novel, of the memoir that I'm writing now, which I've written. It's now with the agent and being prepared for print.
Oh.
Yes.
So, of your life?
Yes.
And what makes your life so fascinating?
I was an aberration from the norm, and I made a choice. I chose to choose my own life, and it wasn't in accordance with the life of my family, my parents, and my family. It was not acceptable. So
What, to go into computers?
No, wasn't acceptable to marry outside my faith. That's what I did.
That was your first husband?
Yes.
Or? Okay. Well, Martinez, what faith were you raised in?
I was raised in the Jewish faith, and that was not acceptable, so I was ousted from the family.
Stupid.
And
they missed out.
The name of my book, my memoir, was When Your Family Says No, You Can Create a Family That Says Yes. And those are the last words.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to reading your memoir when it gets published.
Thank you.
I read
Thank
the
you.
article. The article
Yes.
was terrific.
Thank you.
But the Boston Globe, that's big time, big time.
Yes.
Yeah, terrific.
That was a turning point. That made me officially an author.
So you went from Martinez to Charlestein.
Exactly.
Did they embrace you when you married Gary?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yes, they
Well,
did.
you must be a very forgiving person.
I am forgiving, yes, I am. As you mature, you realize that you have to be more forgiving and you have to be more understanding, and you realize that you yourself have made mistakes and those around you have made mistakes. And most of us realize that we've made mistakes and we're sorry for what we've done and we want to do better. So given that, we have an obligation to look at the other side, at other people, and say, they made mistakes, they're making mistakes, but they too might be sorry for what they did. And they too are trying to do the better thing the next time around.
When you were the president of Rotary, one of the things that I'm not a Rotarian, but I've spoken to that chapter a few times. Usually I talk about politics. But
we're an apolitical club.
I know. And I'm a flaming liberal Democrat. But anyway, and they know it, but that's okay. And I love you anyway. And one of the things that I love about Rotary, and I've known about for many years because my husband was like the last person in Tunisia to get polio.
Oh.
And Rotary has an international program to assist people who are polio patients.
Exactly.
And we made use of the services. I remember driving my husband out somewhere out, may have been Paoli,
Yes.
to meet with an officer of Rotary, and they helped him.
Yes, very interesting. Yes, we eradicated polio. It's almost completely eradicated. There is one country, Afghanistan, Pakistan, that will not allow us to go and give shots or oral vaccines because they're afraid that we're trying to harm them and that we have reasons for it to destroy them. But all the other countries let us do it, and it has almost been eradicated. It's a beautiful thing that Rotary has done. Rotary International is just a marvelous service organization.
It's a leader in stamping out polio. Now, some of my viewers may not remember, when I was a kid, you weren't allowed to step on the beach in any pools of water that had settled.
Yes.
Because there was the fear that you would catch polio.
Right.
And there were so many cases. I know so many people who had polio as teenagers.
Yes.
Not just my husband, and he was only 5 years old when he had it. And they had to send him to France for a year because he couldn't walk.
Wow.
But when he came back from France, he only spoke French. And since I speak French fluently, that's how I met him. Because when I tried talking English when I first met him on Temple's campus, he looked totally blank, but he looked French.
Okay.
So I switched to French. It was raining.
And it worked.
And it took me 6 months to learn how to pronounce his last name because we don't have 3 vowels in a row often in English, Anyway, but this initiative, what made Rotary decide that they're going to stamp out polio in the world, not just America?
I don't know the real reason. I do know that Rotary is a fellowship and a service organization, and it was formed for fellowship and, more importantly, to do good. And Rotarians are passionate, they're energetic, and they're intellectual. And they use those passions to create wonderful programs for third world countries. And they put their heart and soul into it. Over 90% of every dollar given goes to the charity. That is highly unusual. I think it's the only club.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. When you give a donation to Rotary, it is put in a fund that generates interest and dividends. and the whole thing stays in the fund for 3 years.
Oh.
After 3 years, the money that comes, your dividends and interest that come from that, go to the staff. It's a huge organization. There are 34,000 clubs. There are
34,000
clubs throughout the United States. And there's 1.2 million Rotarians. The wonderful thing about Rotary is that no one gets paid. I was a president. I had to travel. I went to Togo, Africa. I've done all kinds of things, but I always paid for everything myself. So none of the funds that are given, none of the charity that's given, well, very little of it, less than 10%, goes to staff, but none of us volunteers get paid.
I have to cut you off. I could talk to Laya all day because she does so many interesting things and is so bright and terrific. Anyway, Laya Martinez Charlestein, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Look forward to seeing your book published.
Thank you.
We'll see everybody next week.